Local 4 News starts now with a breaking news alert.
The unthinkable has happened again.
I will never forget the screams of my classmates as they were like screaming in pain for help.
Students in Michigan State University told to run, hide, and fight as a gunman opens fire in 2 buildings on campus. Tonight we've learned the 3 students killed in that mass shooting are all from Metro Detroit.
Now, this event that has touched our nation, in fact, is now touching directly our community.
And those 3 victims graduated from high schools in Grosse Pointe and Clawson. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kimberly Gill.
I'm Devin Skillian, live in East Lansing out in front of the Student Union building here on the campus of Michigan State. Those 5 other students who were shot still remain in critical condition tonight in the hospital, as now this community, this broad, huge Michigan State community, which of course really spans all over the world. We've been hearing from alumni from all over trying to process exactly what happened. The campus here, a strange quietude today. Almost as if it was on holiday break. All events here at the campus canceled for these next 2 days after this night that was just terrifying for so many students, but also terrifying for their parents and loved ones as they waited for word back at home. A big gathering place here, usually at the Union. Quiet today because it's just a massive crime scene. Here's what we know at this hour. All 8 of these shooting victims, students here at MSU, all real connections to Michigan State University, which we so far seem to believe that the gunman had not. The shooting began at Berkey Hall just after 8 o'clock last night. We were told about 8:18 when the first shots rang out. 3 hours later, the shooter was found where he took his own life in Lansing. We've got team coverage coming up tonight with reporters here in East Lansing, Lansing as well, but also Grosse Pointe and Clawson. We are learning more about the young lives that were taken away, and I'll reiterate that that's where we prefer to keep our focus, on those 8 lives, 5 people still fighting for theirs, and the 3 that were lost last night, rather than on the shooter in this case. Let's start in Grosse Pointe tonight, where Hank Winchester is standing by, the home of 2 of the shooting victims who died last night. Hank?
And Devin, it's just devastating. There's no other way to put it. You really feel for the people within this community. Tonight, many will be coming together here at the church you see behind me, St. Paul's here on Lakeshore Drive and Grosse Pointe Farms, to honor the life of Brian Frazier, who graduated from Grosse Pointe South in 2021. As you mentioned, 2 of the victims killed last night on campus called Grosse Pointe home. The Grosse Pointe community reeling today, learning that 2 of its own among those killed at Michigan State last night. Brian Frazier graduated from Grosse Pointe South in 2021. The Grosse Pointe Park native, we're told, was working last night in the Student Union on campus when the shooting took place. At Michigan State, Brian was the president of his fraternity, Phi Delta Theta. Today, fraternity members sharing photos and thoughts about Brian, devastated by his passing. Ariel Anderson graduated from Grosse Pointe North in the class of 2021. The Harper Woods native was on campus last night when the gunfire broke out. Her family members tried to reach her. When they were unsuccessful, they turned to social media, and they were texting her friends. They grew concerned, and then they learned the news. Today, the superintendent of Grosse Pointe Schools talking about this tragedy that sadly hit so close to home.
An act of senseless violence that has no place in our society, and in particular no place at school. But then it touched our community not once, but not twice. And now this event that has touched our nation, in fact, is now touching directly our community.
Superintendent Dr. John Dean saying there was a lot of confusion early this morning. Students talking about a former classmate who was a victim. And then hours later, they learned there was another victim. It was almost too much to comprehend.
How can we help everyone stay safe so that there isn't another superintendent giving this press conference, or more importantly, another set of parents that are getting this terrible, grieving information?
And the superintendent saying today that they didn't learn this information from police in East Lansing or during a media briefing. It was the students within the high school this morning sharing information with one another who eventually learned that 2 of their former classmates were among those who were killed in East Lansing. The superintendent then turning his attention to getting grief counselors into the district as quickly as possible to work with anybody that needs help during this very difficult time. We're live here tonight at Grosse Pointe Farms. Hank Winchester, back to you.
Well, you're so right, Hank. The odds seem so long that 2 of the victims would be from the same hometown in Grosse Pointe. So now you know a little bit more about Brian Frazier and Ariel Anderson. The 3rd victim is 20-year-old Alexandra Werner. Alexandra was an incredible athlete, graduated from Clawson High School back in 2020. Priya Mann standing by live in Clawson, where the superintendent of schools got pretty emotional talking about Alex. Priya.
Yeah, that's right, Devin. He's known Al since she was 5 years old. She was 20 years old when she was shot and killed at the campus of MSU. Here at Clawson High School, a standout athlete. She was league MVP for basketball and volleyball, an all-state softball player, and a real inspiration to so many here at school. Take a listen.
One of the toughest days of my life.
Educators say Alexandria Werner, who went by Al, was not only a star athlete, but a role model at Clawson High School.
We're struggling. We're all struggling here at the high school because of what an incredible person that Al was and what she brought to Clawson High School.
Assistant principal and varsity basketball coach Kelly Horn was one of the first to learn Al was shot and killed Monday night at MSU.
We got the text message that no one wants to get at about 3 a.m.
To wake up at 5 a.m. to that text from my assistant principal with that news was devastating.
The superintendent of Clawson Public Schools says Al was a natural leader.
She walked the halls every day modeling high character, modeling the utmost kindness, and in a world that needs great human beings, because we're void of that clearly based on what happened last night. Al was that.
Tuesday's basketball game was canceled as the community comes together to grieve.
Her and I spent a lot of time in this gym and in this school, and she truly loved her high school. She truly loved Clawson. The whole Werner family is the heart of our town.
She was a gift to this place, to us, and in her 20 years, 15 of which I knew her, met her in this gym when she was 5. She's a life changer for all of us. She'll impact you on a level that you wish your children and students, young leaders would. She defined it.
And Al leaves behind an older brother, a younger sister, her parents, and of course countless friends here at Clawson High School and in the greater Clawson area. There are memorials and vigils planned in the coming days, as well as grief counselors here for students. Educators tell me that's their primary focus right now, coming together for the Werner family and also grieving with the students here. Of course, just so many questions about how such a young life, such a promising life, could be taken so horrifically. Reporting live in Clawson tonight, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Boy, that's so true. All right, Priya. You know, Kimberly, one of the reasons why it is so quiet here is a lot of the students who have the ability to go home have done exactly that, wanting to get back into the loving arms of parents after those horrible hours last night, being sheltering in place, locked down, lights out, phones on silent. It's just horrible, as you and I were trying to imagine it for parents. And in fact, we were sitting next to one of them in Cam Adams, Kimberly.
Exactly. Just a really scary time, incredibly tense time for parents, as you said, who watch from home, praying their child or children were okay. Jacqueline Francis, we want to go to her. She's live right now at the Sparty statue on campus. Jacqueline, some very emotional reunions on campus today.
That's right. Kimberly and Devin were here by that now Sparty Memorial. It was created by students to honor those lives lost. It's one of the more emotional scenes we've seen play out on campus today. That includes the swarm of parents that showed up here this morning to pick up their kids, hugging them tight before taking them home. Take a look. It's the hug every parent has been waiting for.
I would have come up last night, but he said to wait till this morning.
This Grosse Pointe mom hit the road first thing this morning after learning 2 of the victims were from her hometown. Her son is safe, But the trauma for everyone is just sinking in.
This is nothing that any of these kids should ever have to go through. It's unbelievable.
Surreal experience. I mean, it left me speechless. I've never been in something like this ever in my life.
Freshman Aiden Kokonowski and his twin sister also headed home to Southeast Michigan.
We told her, my mom and dad, we were safe, and I talked to her this morning, and she wants us home. So, because of course she wants to see us and we want to see her.
Classes are canceled for the next week. Students already shaken at the thought of heading back to their classroom turned crime scene.
I go to those buildings every single week. Like, I have a class in Berkey on Fridays. Like, I don't know how I'm ever going to go back there and have class, so.
Parents and students telling us they plan to take it one day at a time.
Keep my baby in my nest for the next couple days.
Coming up at 6 o'clock, we have a very unique perspective to share with you. It is a Michigan State student who is also a Sandy Hook survivor. So more than 10 years later, after she survived that tragedy, she found herself barricading in place, sheltering in place last night. She draws parallels between the two. So we'll have more on that coming up at 6 o'clock. For now, reporting live from the MSU campus, Jacqueline Francis, back to you.
Jacqueline, that just seems insanely unfair, kind of like as we've talked about that group of students who left Oxford High School only to end up here and having gone through yet another mass shooting in their lives. Let's say we've got more to come from here in East Lansing, but now let's head back to the studio with Kimberly and Karen.
Yeah, okay, Devin, we'll talk to you in just a bit. We appreciate it. We want to talk about the suspect. We know he is Anthony McCray. Our investigative team been working to uncover who he is. Local 4 investigator Karen Drew joins us. You've been working since 5 this morning, trying to get more information, digging into this. You learned about his background and previous run-ins with the law.
And that's the key, Kimberly, because there is a history. And as we unfold on this, we're going to say, hey, wait a second, how did this happen? Why weren't things caught? So let me start from the very beginning with you. We're saying his name. We're not going to show his picture. We have his mugshot. We don't want to glorify him. What we don't know, though, is the motive for Anthony McCray. MSU police also confirmed tonight that they did find a note in McCray's pocket last night. We learned late this afternoon that it did contain a threat to 2 schools in Ewing, New Jersey, an area he does have ties to. Now, those threats were unfounded, but 2 schools were closed today while they investigated. Detectives there say he has a history of mental health issues. McCray did live in New Jersey. He was born in Pennsylvania, but he did move to the Lansing area about 2 decades ago. Now, McCray's father, Michael, did speak to NBC News earlier today. He said during an interview, quote, he was grieving his mom. He wouldn't let it go. He got bitter, and bitter. His mom died, and he just started getting evil and mean. He didn't care about anything anymore. The dad also said he told his son, talk to daddy. Let me know if something is on your mind. If you need help, I'll get you help. The father said Anthony told him he was okay and didn't need help. He did also uncover some on his criminal background. I want to share that. Back in June of 2019, McCray was arrested, charged with a felony firearm charge. That was after he was caught driving a car with a loaded gun. He went to court. He pled down to a misdemeanor, served 1 day in jail. 1 day. Got a year probation. Probation ended in May of 2021. Now, McCray's father said he didn't know why his son targeted the school, but believed he may have been actually trying to apply for a job there. Now, our Sean Lay is also digging into the shooter for us this afternoon and uncovering some other information.
That's right. Sean, you're talking to people who live nearby. What have you learned so far?
And we're trying to learn as much as we can because, Kimberly, Karen, we're parents, we're people. We want to know why. That's what everyone wants to know. Karen, you pointed out that McCray moved in with his father right here about a year ago in this small little red house at the end of a very quiet dirt road. But the Michigan State Capitol is just 2 miles behind that house. And again, you mentioned that the father had mentioned that after his mom died, he became more isolated and angry. We talked to neighbors here up and down this street. They said they would see McCray all the time this past year, but he would never speak to them, and he never drove. He was always on foot, and it's believed he walked 5 miles that way. Last night, that's exactly where campus is.
It's insane. I mean, I couldn't imagine that it was happening so close to home.
Megan Bender started listening to her scanner when this first call went out that 5 miles from her home was an active shooter on the campus of Michigan State University.
I'm a few units. I got a shot fire complaint at Berkey Hall, 509 East Circle.
Bender can lay out a perfect timeline of events for us as she listened to radio dispatch calls telling the police the shooter left victims in Berkey Hall and was moving into the student union.
Shooter is in the Union Building, currently in the Union Building. Any LPD units on this channel? Shooter's in the Union Building.
And then Bender was again shocked when she heard her street on the police radio.
Like, they say 128 East Howe Avenue. And I'm like, to my husband, like, where is it? Like, it's right here. Like, we're East Howe Avenue. And he thought it was back there, but then he was like, that's Mike's house.
Bender can see the house at the bottom of her hill. Mike is Mike McCrae, the father of shooter Anthony McCrae, who was living here with his dad. McCrae walking the 5 miles from this home to campus, going on a rampage, and was walking back when police found his body just blocks away from this home, dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
He was literally on his way home, like coming from MSU to be right there on High Street. Like, he was coming home. Like, he was about to be back over here.
That's wild. I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'm just grateful that he didn't decide to go crazy around home.
Back here live, so much to wrap your head around here, the police flooding that area. We know they did such a good job running towards the danger, but McCrae walking out of a door and almost reaching the 5 miles back here to the home before his body was discovered. Also, if you're not supposed to have a gun legally and you're firing a gun out of the back of this home, that's what many neighbors are telling us, and they're telling us police were here that day. How are you not under arrest and the gun taken away? We've asked Lansing police that. They're busy today, of course, because they're dealing with this awful shooting. We're also asking the top levels of Lansing government, including the mayor, to look into this for us because we want that answer. If he was firing out last summer, what happened there? What was done? The other thing I want to relay to you, Kimberly, is that people in this neighborhood, they know Mike McCrae, the father. They love that guy. They feel very badly for him right now. They say he is just an open, loving guy, very good neighbor here to them. Back to you.
Yeah, sounds like he tried to help, too. Yeah. Sean, we appreciate your report tonight. Sean mentioned the gun, the weapon. What do we know about McCrae's weapon so far?
Right. And first of all, if he's shooting, why isn't anything going on in the neighborhood?
Exactly.
Seriously. So you've got a local agency wondering why they didn't deal with that right. And then we're digging into information on the weapon because MSU police confirmed they did recover the weapon, but they did not provide more details about the firearm. Now, remember, a while ago we said he was facing a felony firearms charge.
Right.
He got pled down, but how in the world are you able to get that gun? Attorney General Dana Nessel, she's asking some tough questions. She wants to know how this happened, so we will have her on at 6, and we're going to dig deeper into how this gun issue developed and how do you get a gun and
so
shoot
many
in your neighborhood. And
absolutely. So many questions remain. We appreciate it, Karen. We have much more on this tragedy and its impact on our community in the next 90 minutes of news here. Rod Maloney is at Sparrow Hospital, where 5 students are fighting for their lives, and we'll be joined in studio by a clinical psychologist who shares tips on how to process all of this. Please stay with us. We'll be